The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Well, looky, who made the mainstream media? In fact, been sliding into the mainstream media for a couple weeks now. And that's Q, the QAnons. You know, those people that were telling you to follow the plan because there's a plan going on behind the scenes. So far, the only plan I see is a coronavirus plan that has taken away all of our freedoms, or attempted to take away all of our freedoms. But, you know, you have a lot of Q followers out there who are really behind whoever Q is. You never see the person's face. You don't see the people's face because there's probably more than one person. In fact, I gave up on the Q phenomenon long ago. I was probably one of the first to say, I don't know why you guys are even getting involved with this thing here. But a lot of people got right behind it. I think the Q thing made its first 2 or 3 posts, and within a week or two of them appearing on the scene, I decided, I don't like what's going on here. I just not going to buy this stuff. Now it's some years later, it's making the mainstream news, and they're talking about it. They even were going to have a person who supports Q talk at the Republican National Convention. Then they banned her or got rid of her because she made a tweet. Really good free speech there, Republicans. Really good free speech. But the banning of saying our free speech is pretty common these days with not only political parties, but the malpractice media. Whatever you say that is not the narrative of the day, or what nobody wants to talk about, well, then we're going to ban you. We're going to stop you from saying it. We're going to try to suppress the people that could hear your message. I know for many years now that I haven't officially been deplatformed, but I've been shadow banned so hard that it virtually is impossible to grow the show anymore. And we were really kicking ass there for a while. And then you say a few things, and well, you know, the powers that be don't like that sort of stuff, so they find a way. They didn't do the Alex Jones thing where they kicked me off the platform. I'm not big enough for that. So they just made it so I couldn't grow any further. Don't talk conspiracy, John. Don't talk that stuff. So Q's in the mainstream, which makes it, in my opinion, even more apparent that Q is nothing but a phenomenon created to, let's say, as a psyop. And I know I've probably lost all the Q supporters by now. That's all you have to say. And because the Q supporters are just as locked into their belief system as any other group. If you're a hardcore Democrat, BLMer, whoever, if you're seriously locked into your belief system and you have no no room to add or subtract things based on knowledge, information, whatnot, then you're probably going to do what everybody does when somebody says something that you don't like, and that's you'll turn it off. Maybe there'll be a whole lot of hate mail or comments in the video when I put the video up, stating their opinion on Q. And I just don't see it as a thing we should be following. But I'm not the groupthink kind of guy. That's just not me. I believe each individual needs to think everything through, keep not an open mind, but a critically thinking mind. I hate the concept of being open-minded. My trash can is open, and I can fill it with all kinds of junk. It doesn't mean that junk's any good. And for the most part, what goes into the trash is trash. And that's why today's media, whether it being the mainstream malpractice media or the alternative media, we all have to take that with a grain of salt. And with the concept of Q, a person or group or whatever that doesn't have the guts to show their face, like the anonymous movement, how can you trust somebody who you can't see, who's telling you this information? It's dangerous, John. It's this person, it's that person, whatever. Those are always excuses. And that's pretty much the standard operating procedure today. Instead of taking responsibility, there's always excuses for everything. And with the Q movement and what they've been saying since the very beginning, and people who have been following them, and I watch a few channels, they've actually toned back their Q talk because, well, nothing from Q, or very little from Q, has translated into the real world. It's been a lot of what Roy Potter calls hopium. And I'm not about hopium, but a lot of people are. But with the mainstream malpractice media now focusing on Q during the Republican National Committee, their little 4 or 5 day long convention. We just had the Democrats. Notice how that's all timed. They can't have them at the same time because that would cut media coverage. So they stagger them. You don't think that's planned? You don't think they were talking about, well, we're going to have our convention. This is the dates we're going to have our convention. Okay, well, we'll have our convention after that so we don't interrupt your news coverage. I'd like to see that, actually, where both conventions went on at the same time. So that way, when you got speeches over here and speeches over here, there's no way of there's no way of them planning against each other on what to say for the next day because it's all happening at the same time. Because you know how this works. One of those worthless politicians will point out something, talk about something, whatever, and then it's picked up from there. Good, bad, the ugly, whatever it is. And we all, unfortunately, many of us follow what is being told to us versus checking out some stuff ourselves. I see it all the time. It's the meme culture, right? That's what we're in. We're in the meme culture. You can't have your own opinions, but somebody who writes a meme that you agree with, well, you'll post that. So you're posting somebody else's thoughts, not your own, and you think you're so intelligent. The Q phenomenon is out of the hopes that somebody inside somewhere is helping destroy the so-called swamp, the deep state. When with the whole coronavirus thing, ladies and gentlemen, where was Q on coronavirus in the beginning? If Q was so knowledgeable, so important to some kind of movement, whatever it is, I don't know. If he was so important, or she was so important, or the group was so important, then why didn't they warn us months in advance about corona? They know everything, right? Q knows everything. How come Hillary hasn't gone to jail, folks? Have you ever thought of that? They don't have enough evidence that Hillary committed some kind of crime. Maybe there's no will in the government. Remember, Donald Trump said they're good people. They're good people. So why would good people go to jail? No matter how many emails she deleted, no matter the Benghazi incident and Whitewater and all that stuff, she's fine. The president who had some kind of power, or at one time, apparently, that power seems to be eroded at very best. Although he's trying to push that vaccine, now they're trying to rush the vaccine ahead of, because it was supposed to be around Christmas. Remember that? We're going to have it by the end of the year. Now it looks like they're going to try and have this thing done before the election. I wonder why. Too many people are catching on that the two-party system isn't working. It's not working for the American people at all. So because of that fact, I think a lot of people don't want to vote this year. Especially now, I mean, we got the mail-in voting. In New Jersey, we saw they have to have a new election because the old election was somehow tainted by the mail-in voting. Nobody's talking about that in the mainstream media. They're talking about Philadelphia. But when you get certain judges, judges are as political as any politician, and for that matter, just about anybody these days. We are so hyper political, and you're either on one side or the other, and people like myself who don't lean into those two groups may have some beliefs that those groups have, but you don't fall into those groups. And as we've preached here many times, if you're part of a group, you have no say unless you're the leader of that group or part of the leadership. So whatever goes on, you're just a water carrier. You're just one of their little sheeples. And they don't mind sheeple. Doesn't matter who they are, Democrats, Republicans. These groups terrorizing Portland and Seattle, and now we have them right here in the hometown. I knew it was going to grow. I told you. I mean, somebody told you months ago. Boy, if I could put a list of everything that somebody told you would happen in the past, since, let's say, COVID began way back, when it was in China, just China. If that person put a list up of everything they told you was going to happen, it'd be pretty amazing, and yet most people wouldn't have paid attention or didn't want to pay attention to that. Outright ignored. I know, I see people ignoring. It's easy today on social media. Back in the day when you were handing out flyers to get your information out, whatever it was, you could shove it in their face. You could go down to a local coffee shop or something and put your little rag out or whatever. Well, today, you share something on social media, and if people want to ignore you, it's real easy to ignore you. Say unfollow. That's the first segment, folks, just like that. Randomly talking about a lot of different stuff there. We'll get into more as we're winding down these first 399 episodes. We're in episode 397. We'll have 2 more episodes before we take a short little break. Maybe we'll get into some of that as we go along. I really do not want to get too deep into anything because to me it's all hogwash. So, well, we'll be right back, folks. Stay tuned. Lot in store for ya. Be right back.
Hey, Uncle Shady, where are they going? Hey, you, get back here. The John Lebang Show will be right back.
Are you in need of commercial or residential window cleaning? Do you need your office cleaned? Maybe custodial work? How about some gutter cleaning? If you do, then call Pane in the Glass. For a beautiful shine that's crystal clear, call Pane and the Glass. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass.
You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
It's better than an Eye-Raider convention.
Yeah, last night I was on Twitter just messing around before bed, seeing there's a new hashtag. I forgot what it was. I don't even care. I don't want you to even promote this stupid hashtag, but so I go check out why that hashtag is so popular, and you can see people are complaining the cops are so bad. Of course, that's a narrative today, and then you get the others that back the blue and all that, right? But the people who are running around with this latest hashtag, posting about their race, because they can't join the human race, they've got to make themselves a subgroup. And I wish we'd all get ourselves enlightened a little bit and realize we're human beings, and what human beings do is not make ourselves lesser by putting us into a subgroup. But if you're not a regular human being and the normal human being, you're one of those people that put yourself in a subgroup or puts other people in a subgroup, well, right now, those people have all the attention. So they're complaining how brutal the cops are because of the latest incident. I think it was in Wisconsin, where the man resisted arrest, wrestled with the cops, got out, tried to get in his car, and the cops shot him. And it's all the cops' fault. And I'm not supporting the police at all. I think they're a bunch of a-holes. Not all of them, but they're training, because you don't want a blanket statement all, because I know a few good cops actually. But they're trained to handle situations in a certain way. And now that the country has gone off the deep end, they don't know how to react. They're constantly being attacked. They're constantly being ignored and threatened and all that. So these incidents that have been happening, that are being highlighted by the media and on social media to divide us all, because it couldn't have been a criminal and a bad cop, right? It had to be an unarmed black man and a white cop. That's what people are promoting. And anyone who says that, anyone who pushes that narrative is a racist. Because when I see these videos and I look at it as a criminal who was resisting arrest. So the cops don't like to have their arrests being resisted go out and use excessive force. And if they don't use excessive force, and this is no excuse for them, but if they don't use excessive force, the criminals will get away. So I have a solution for how to, because that's what we do here, right? We decided last show that we were going to have solutions for you. I have a solution to have less cop killing other human beings. Real simple. Are you people listening? I just want to make sure you're all listening, because this is very important. This could stop every single cop from using excessive force. You ready, folks? Can you handle this? What's coming? Here it is. Don't put yourself in a position that the cops are being called on you, or that the cops are going to be brought in. Pretty simple. Staying home is a great idea. In fact, someone told you months ago to stay home. Prepare, be aware, gather what you needed, food, medical supply, all that. Somebody told you that. If you just stay home, things wouldn't get out of hand. We could control the situation if you just stayed home. But unfortunately, people don't listen, probably because they ignore, and they don't want to stay home. They don't want to do the right thing, so they go out, and they put themselves in a position that the police are called on them or called into the situation. And they expect it to turn out well when the cops show up. So, let's do it this way. Make it so the cops don't show up by staying home. Don't getting involved in drama. Don't get yourself put in a position that the cops are going to be called. If you do that, I can guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, I can guarantee you, the cops killing people they have to deal with, especially the ones that resist arrest, will go dramatically down. Dramatically. But will people get that simple? And that you can't get much more simple than that. Don't do something to have the cops show up to put yourself in a position to have a confrontation with them. And if you can't get that far, if for some reason that's too hard, and the cops do show up and want to question you and maybe want to arrest you, the smartest move you can do is not resist arrest. Resisting arrest has shown to end up in very poor results for the person who resisted the arrest. It's very simple logic, folks. I don't understand why people can't grasp it. It's almost as if they're not intelligent enough to grasp that concept. I'm not calling them unintelligent. Oh, no, I'm not doing that at all. I'm saying it's as if they're not intelligent. They're not using their brains, because anyone who has a critically thinking mind will know once the cops are on the scene, the best thing you could do is cooperate with them. Because once you stop cooperating with them, it turns nasty. And you can avoid all that by not even having the cops show up, by simply avoiding trouble. It's real easy. I've done it my whole life, folks. You avoid trouble by staying out of trouble. Don't do things that'll put you in trouble. I know, to some of my longtime listeners and the people who are just tuning in are like, dude, I mean, that's simple. There are people out there, ladies and gentlemen, that have a truly hard time with that concept. To the point where whole communities don't understand that concept. And then they claim there's police brutality as a result of not having the simple brain power to stay out of trouble, to not get involved in some form of drama, because drama always ends up in trouble. This is not the movies where drama, love and all that. Reality, folks, doesn't work like that. Drama causes trouble. Trouble, if allowed to grow to where it is not a containable trouble, because people can't self-govern themselves. And I mean, that's what it's all about. Self-governance. And that's the essence of being an American, a real American. Just because you're born here doesn't mean you're an American. At least you don't have the concept of what Americanism is. From the very beginning, it was about self-governance. And if you can't do that, if you're unable to govern yourselves, you find yourself in trouble, you can't keep a job, you go steal something, whatever, it's not America's fault. Because the concept of Americanism is, as I've been stating, and I feel like I have to keep pounding it like a hammer, because people have blocked any other viewpoint from reaching the thinking part of their brain. And it might be that they don't have a thinking part of the brain. I'd like to think otherwise. But as we are seeing across many cities in this country, there are people protesting police violence, and what's happening? They're causing violence. Violence begets violence. You want the violence to stop, ladies and gentlemen? You want the police to stop being so brutal. If they actually are as brutal as you say, or these aren't just little incidences. Because if this happened, if this brutality happened as rampant as they want us to believe, there would be a new news story every couple hours. A new news story every couple hours, because the malpractice media would jump all over it. That's why they highlight these single incidences to the point where it causes a frenzy, because that doesn't happen on a regular basis in this country. The average American is not what you would call a racist, whether you like it or not. Now, the people who point out the race of a person, well, those people, you can guarantee yourself that those people are racists. When they say this person or this people, why can't we just all be human beings, folks, and act like logically thinking human beings? Is that too hard? See, I think that is too hard, because the average person, I don't know what the average IQ is, but it's probably not all that high. There's a whole lot of people below average, and they won't get that concept. They won't get the concept of self-governing. They won't get the concept that if they stay out of trouble, they won't get into trouble, and then the cops won't show up and put themselves into more trouble. And then, of course, if they're avoiding the arrest, then it escalates into something that becomes some kind of national or international event. Because, and this has happened in almost every major incident over the past, 3 months since the GF situation happened there up in Minnesota? He was avoiding arrest. He ended up, well, we don't have to talk about how he ended up. The guy down in Atlanta, drunk, cops were being nice to him. They had to arrest him because he was under the influence of alcohol, and he was driving, so he avoided or resisted arrest. And how did that end up? The recent incident in Wisconsin. You avoid arrest, you're going to get trouble. And you already had trouble by having the cops show up. Why is that concept so hard for people to grasp? Is it that they don't want to grasp at? See, a good person, and yes, now I'm separating people from good and bad. A good person knows not to steal, knows to stay out of trouble, knows not to get the cops called on them, and wouldn't get the cops called on them because they are a good person. Be right back, folks. Second segment all done. Heading into the second half of the show. Be right back.
Don't move a muscle.
The John Lebang Show will be right back.
With lots of fun and excitement. Yes!
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is your one-stop shop for tuxedos and men's quality suits. We go the extra mile to make sure your tux or suit is the perfect fit. Our huge selection is second to none in the state.
Looking good.
Outstanding customer service.
And we're located on Dix Toledo in Southgate. Call today, 734-285-3253.
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is the place to be.
Yeah. Thanks for coming to Jim's Tuxedos and Menswear.
You know I had to come to the best.
That's right.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
So if you haven't been to the website recently, you should go there. We have a latest daily brew up that talks about a brand new album coming out from AC/DC. And yes, I'm going to talk music because I'm so tired, absolutely tired of talking about the bad things that happen in this country. They're only going to get worse. So you know what? We need a break. And this is a huge positive for myself because I'm a huge fan of AC/DC to the point where I've seen them 27 times. I toured with them on the Black Ice tour until I ran out of money. It was a childhood bucket list thing that I would follow AC/DC around on their last album. I thought the Black Ice album was going to be their last album. That I was wrong on that, but oh well, they had the Rock or Bust, which was the previous album, and now with some great technology, according to Dee Schneider and iHeartRadio, AC/DC has a new album on the way. Malcolm Young, believe it or not, is going to be on the album. Apparently, they're using old recordings of him with tracks that didn't make the album. We'll find out exactly how that broke down, I'm sure, in the coming weeks and months. But this is a long-awaited album. I was hoping AC/DC would do something. I reported it a few times that they were in the studio doing this very thing. Well, it looks as if we're on the verge of this album coming out at some point in the near future. And it's probably just a matter of time because AC/DC loves to tour. And because of that fact, they like playing live. Because of that fact, if this whole COVID thing, and I think that's what they're waiting for, trying to open up segments where we can go to concerts again, I think that's what AC/DC is kind of waiting for. And with Rock or Bust, they had released it, I think, in like October or November of whatever year that came out. I can't actually remember. 2014, maybe 15. I don't remember exactly. It was a decent album. His first album with Stevie Young on there. And they tried some different stuff on there, which really made it really great. I actually think I'm going to listen to that album after the show. Because there are like 4 absolutely amazing songs on that album. And it didn't get the pub because the damn record companies and whoever picks the singles always picks the one that sounds most AC/DC like and not the one that's the best song on the album. But I can't wait. I mean, I've been anticipating this album for a year now. I heard rumors about it. I was reading little stories. There were pictures showing the band in Vancouver at the Normal Studio where they've recorded at least the last 2 or 3 albums. And they were back there, and you could see Angus smoking a cigarette, and it looks like Brian Johnson's back. Cliff Williams, who retired from AC/DC, is going to be on the album. Phil Rudd, their classic drummer, is going to be playing the drums on the album. So literally, this is the classic AC/DC lineup with, of course, the help of Stevie Young. I'm sure he has some parts he plays on the album, you would think. and they wouldn't just leave him out because they did make him part of the band. So I'm eagerly anticipating this album and what kind of music is going to come from this. And being that they're using tracks from Malcolm, I would think we're going to get a little harder edged AC/DC style music because Malcolm was a power player. He is my biggest influence when it comes to guitar. If you didn't know that, I do play rhythm guitar, write songs. I was in a AC/DC tribute band once, and I've done 7 albums of original music over my career. And Malcolm was probably the biggest influence in my guitar playing techniques. Songwriting, it has some influence, although Black Sabbath and Soundgarden, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Whitesnake. I mean, there's just a host of influences that made up my style, the John Lebang, the J. Lebang style of music. Which no albums sounded the same, so that was really awesome, in my opinion. But like AC/DC, who has a formula that's been working since the early 70s, maybe that's the way to become a huge star, although I don't think we're going to have huge rock band stars, big mega bands in the future. One, it's probably too expensive to record mega bands in the future. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier for the mainstream radio music industry, that is, all the record companies, to just throw a single artist in the studio, have somebody create a beat or a music, or maybe even buy a beat from somebody and just write some lyrics over the beat. It's become much easier and cheaper to do that than it is to bring a band in the studio, have them record, especially a small-time band that has no major following, and there's no guarantee that the general public is going to get behind this band and make them a lot of money, which is going to make the record company a lot of money. And it takes hours to record an album with a full band. You have a 5-piece band, unless you're like AC/DC, who goes in, rips out what they need to do, and get the heck out of there. And most of their studio time is actually writing this material. Because once it's written, they go in. I mean, Angus is a professional, as well as the rest of the guys. They go in, knock their stuff out, and get the heck out of there. Let the producer handle the rest of it. So I don't think in the future, even now you can see that, the bands are having to pay for their own recordings and self-promote and self-produce. And yes, that's the way of the future. But that is going to result in really no mega bands. No AC/DCs of the future. No Black Sabbath. No Van Halens. No Motley Crues. No Beatles. No Led Zeppelins in the future. Bands that their songs will remain timeless and they can write and produce song after song after song and everything's a hit, or lots are hits. Look at how many hits AC/DC has. You go to an AC/DC concert, if you don't know them and their songs, like you can't link the two together for some reason, you've been on Mars or something, you go to an AC/DC concert and they play Dirty Deeds and Highway to Hell, Hell's Bells, Shoot to Thrill, Back in Black, TNT. You start realizing, damn, I know all these songs. I didn't know that was them. I've taken people to AC/DC concerts and were like, I didn't know they wrote that song. But to have bands like that in the future, I don't see it. And me being a person who has a music show as well as this broadcast here, if you're not aware of it, Go to our website, www.jlebang.com, and check out the Banger Music Hour. That's where you're going to find the best, and I'm telling you, folks, the best rock and metal that's out there, and the mainstream hasn't bought into it yet. And probably it's going to be very difficult for these bands to hit the mainstream. That's part of my shtick with the show. See, I was a starving artist. I didn't have the outlets these bands have now, so I had to go for the record company and hope they would get behind me, pay for my record. That didn't happen, so I did all my own. 7 albums I self-produced, self-funded. Nowadays, bands don't even have to do that with all the what do they call it? Crowdfunding platforms and the GoFundMes and all these other sort of things. And I see bands like Motion Device. If you haven't heard them, they're really great. They're like a really young Black Sabbath-y type group with a think of Ronnie James Dio on vocals, but a female doing Ronnie James Dio or singing like Ronnie James Dio. And that gives you a nice overview of the band Motion Device. They're about ready to put out an album, and they did a whole crowdfunding thing themselves. They're one of those acts that has an opportunity, a chance, because I think their parents are deeply involved in the music industry, and they know how to avoid the shortcomings and the falls and the mistakes that a lot of the bands that don't have that advantage make along the way. But I'm really actually proud that so many bands are out there self-producing music and really promoting themselves. I actually feel like I was in one of the founding fathers of that. I won't get the credit for it, very much like I won't get the credit for being one of the early advocates to legalize marijuana. I actually did both at the same time. I had an album called Save the Roaches that was a call to basically legalize marijuana because I was an activist back then to legalize that stuff. Nobody remembers. But I also was self-producing albums that very few people out there were doing. They were doing demos, but they weren't doing the full album. Covers and lyric sheets and pictures and the promotion and the radio advertising. Bands and artists weren't doing that on a regular basis. Way back, and now I'm going to date myself, back in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s. But I was one of those people because this happens to this day. You tell me I can't do something, I'm going to go out and prove you wrong. And I've done that on many, many occasions, and yet still people, many people underestimate me. I get that in my day job. You know, they act like I'm although I do all the work and I solve problems, you get the feeling that sometimes they think you're a joke because you won't stick your whole life into a certain company. Give it all up to them because that company is your God. Well, I don't do that. And you don't get promoted unless you do a little brown nosing, butt kissing. And those people will underestimate me like a lot of people do. Except we'll have to get into this after the break, but I'm pretty proud of a lot of the things I did because I did it on my own when somebody told me I couldn't do it. And that's the worst thing, or maybe the best thing, that could happen. The worst thing for you to do, the best thing for me, because once somebody underestimates me and tells me I can't do it, just like the radio show, many people told me, you can't do that. You have no degree in that. 8 years and some months later, here I am still on the radio, growing my YouTube numbers as far as subscribers. They don't give me the views, which is another interesting thing. How can I continually get new subscribers, but no views are hit? That's where that stuff I was talking about in the earlier segment, where they were shadow banning me. Boy, I'm all over the map. We're up against the break, so I better take a break, and we'll talk more on the other side. Fourth segment, we got some show news and some house cleaning or house business to do. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining me. We'll be right back.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
Because the John Lebang Show will be right back.
After this.
That's guaranteed. Yes.
Absolute Skin and Body Care, located in Livonia, Michigan. If you're in need of laser hair removal, skin care, laser tattoo removal, or laser hair regrowth, call Absolute Skin and Body Care. They're located at 37625 Ann Arbor Road, Suite 105 in Livonia, Michigan. Their phone number is 248-533-0448. Absolute Skin and Body Care. Give them a call.
You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
It's huge. Now I got to tweet about it. Little show notes in this segment. We'll talk about upcoming schedule. So all you radio station owners that carry the John Lebang Show, you might want to tune in, although you'll be getting a formal one of these at some point. I'm running a little behind this year. I've been trying to get a whole lot of things accomplished, and it's been tough mentally because of all the other worldly issues happening, that it's been hard to do comedy, and it's hard to even want to do a show sometimes. We have the computer issue, then the car issue, and we have the garage issue. So there's been so much this summer that has happened that it's sometimes hard to get ourselves up to do a show. With only a few weeks left in summer, and we're winding down August, we're going to do 2 more shows after this one, which will be episode 398, 399, happening, of course, Sunday and then next Wednesday. And then we're going to take a quick break before our 400th episode. That is going to come the weekend of Labor Day. So we'll be taking those 2 weeks off, the week of Labor Day and the week after. One, to finish our special that we've been trying to get done. It's amazing. We're usually rocked out 2 or 3 specials by now, and we're way behind. And of course, that's worldly related as well as other things holding us back and stuff, as we said earlier. We're also we need to decompress a little bit, because I know after that it's going to be 2020 election all day, every day, not only from the malpractice media, but from people like myself, who's going to give you a different perspective on what's going on with the election. Nothing you're going to hear on Fox News or CNN or any of the mainstream outlets, and probably the alternative media isn't going to covers it in the same way that we will cover it. We've also considered, and we'll leave that up to you, if we should do an election night YouTube video covering the whole thing. We'll be basically live on YouTube until the end, but I don't know how that's going to work out. Last time we were drinking beer every time Donald Trump won a state, and we were drinking really nasty whiskey every time Hillary won a state. We're thinking about doing the same thing again, although I don't think we're going to find out how the election itself turns out as soon or as quickly as we have in the past. This one's going to drag out. They're going to make this one drag out. We'll get into that when we get back from the break, maybe in the next 2 episodes. So we're going to take a quick break beginning Labor Day weekend, about 2 weeks, just to give ourselves a little time to recharge, catch up on some things that we need to catch up before winter gets here and the election. In those weeks, we'll be playing specials that we've been running a few of those during the summer, but we'll be playing some of our past specials leading into our new special. That way, you're all familiar with the story. Those of you who haven't been that deeply into our Bangerverse stuff and need to catch up a little bit, we'll do it during those weeks. We'll probably, most likely, because we're getting so many damn submissions, and it's a good thing, I shouldn't call them damn submissions, but we're getting so many submissions from artists and promoters with bands that the Banger Music Hour is falling behind on being able to keep up with the new music. So the Music Hour probably won't take a break. We're probably going to continue running that along because we only have 8 or 10 episodes left before we start the whole process of the Banger Music Awards with the Battle of the Jams and the voting process, the nomination process, then the voting process. We're already up on that. In fact, we're going to the submissions, if you're a band and just happen to be listening, the submissions for new music, that's music that was released in 2020, is October 31st. You need to send those submissions to jlebang@live.com. You'll need to also go to our website, www.jlebang.com. Go to the Banger Music Hour page, and right there it'll say submit your music. We want you to register your band there, so that way we don't have to track down a bunch of information when it comes down to nominations and categorizing bands and all that. If you do that little work, you save us a lot of work, and it also, it also shows that you're responsible a little bit, and you want some airplay. We get a lot of bands that just send us stuff. Don't tell us the single. They send us a list of 10 songs, maybe links to all of them, and they expect us to run through every song and pick one for the show. Well, folks, we're receiving, and this is no lie. The Banger Music Hour has gotten so freaking popular that we're receiving 20 submissions a week. New music submissions, not counting the bands that don't have new music. What I mean by that is, 2020, something that was released this year. We receive another 10 a week from there. And we only have, because our show's only an hour long, we only have about 15 spots to play, and we like giving bands who have great music more than one play. So we squeeze in about 6 brand new songs every show. We were doing 4, and the submissions were so much that we actually increased that to 6 with our new segment Slam Jam. If you haven't figured that or heard that one yet, if you that's some new thing that you haven't got into that yet, go to our website, you'll find out about that. Go to our Facebook page, it's all there. And then we play the rest of the songs. So if we fit 6 brand new songs that you've never heard before, plus we play another 6 to 8 new songs that are recent this year. In fact, the Banger Music Hour for new rock and metal is the only place you want to go. Your local radio stations aren't playing it. A lot of these internet stations that play music and stuff don't play it. And if they do, it's some random time, whatever. In fact, I'm surprised on a lot of these internet radio stations that they play mainstream music as if they're trying to drive in people who are already listening to the local radio station. And if they got a choice, folks, they're gonna pick the local radio station versus an internet station every time. It's easier to tune in, and it's just something they're more comfortable with. And if you're not promoting your radio station, which I see this so often, And it's an indictment on internet radio because there's just way too many, and anybody can own a radio station these days. Doesn't matter if you're good or not. When you have stations that just play mainstream and they don't promote it and don't talk about it, and even if they do promote it, it's not on the level of what a local radio station would be doing. I'm talking terrestrial radio, where you tune in on the actual radio in your car or the one in your house, versus one you actually have to have some kind of device that has an app or something that takes you to a website that'll play you the song. A lot of these independent internet radio stations will never go anywhere because they don't get behind their own stations and do promotions, and then they're only playing the same material that the mainstream terrestrial radio stations are playing. So the audience you're going to get is very minimal. Now there are exceptions to all these rules, ladies and gentlemen, but the internet-based radio stations should be focusing on independent indie voices, indie music. That's an opinion. And a lot of these radio station owners would disagree because they feel the mainstream music is what drives people. And I understand that people like familiarity. They do. They like listening to an AC/DC song over a motion device song because they know the AC/DC song. They may not even know it's AC/DC, but they know that in TNT it's oi, 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 and it's easy enough to sing along with that. Or a Robin Trower song, or a Beyonce song, or a Michael Jackson song. It's just easier for a listener who's familiar with that to tune in and sing along with it. Except the internet world is not driving in mainstream listeners, and these stations should realize that. Now to get back with the schedule, because I just went off on a whole tangent there. So after the 2-week break, we'll be back with our 400th episode. We're going to try to do some kind of big shindig with that. I'm not sure right at the moment. We haven't had a chance to plan any of that. And then we'll be back to regular broadcasting right up until the end of October for the Banger Music Hour. The John Lebang Show will go a little further into November than the Music Hour, but that's because the Music Hour itself will have so much to do when it comes to the Music Awards. We just can't have shows, and really it's unfair for bands who can't be in the Music Award to get songs played and not be able to be counted. So we take a break from the Music Hour, but you'll still get it. We'll get replays and stuff like that. We take a break from the new broadcasts because we don't stop on the Music Hour all year. There's really no break for that. So we take it at the end of the year as we're going into the Music Awards. And this is our 4th annual Banger Music Awards, and I can tell you without hesitation, folks, this will be the biggest and best music awards ever. We have far more submissions this year. It's already just this mountain of stuff we've got to sort through that, no offense to any of the other years and any of the winners in the past, because they're all great. But this year has probably the biggest selection of great music we've ever had. And it's going to be so difficult just to pick the nominees, let alone for you, the listeners, to have to sort through the nominees to pick your votes for the winners of the Banger Music Awards. Last year we had, 15 presenters? We're going to be right around the same amount. If you want to be a presenter, go to our website, jlebang.com, and sign up there at the Banger Music Awards link, and you can do that there. So with that being said, folks, I think we've covered everything I need to cover this hour. Again, there was not much news. We just randomly talked about some stuff. We did talk about AC/DC. That's always a good thing. And until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again. I want to thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. I'm John Lebang, signing off for now from the Banger Studios.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.